The wind swept its way across the stone walkway. Chris ran up the path to the mailbox and checked its contents. Most of the letters were common junk mail. Some of it was about internet services, phone deals, and coupons. But Chris pulled out a letter that had a photo of a city. On it was the word Maine. He smiled, knowing it was from his older brother Martin. His brother was in Maine at a college. Chris looked on the back and read his brother's message. I was with Laura and her sister at a zoo and saw this postcard. Nothing fancy now. Just that it's almost summer break. I have no plans currently, but I really want to see you. It's been way too long. Chris went inside and showed the postcard to his father. His father was skeptical about keeping both his sons safe. But William couldn't bear the fact that he had to bring Chris out of his humanity into this forest home. This home where he befriended the animals and hated the men who attacked his animal friends. William shook his head. I'll call Marn about this. I know he means well, but we can't bear to have you get hurt. Chris groaned, and he went into the kitchen. Mom, Dad is doing his overprotective thing again. It's getting seriously annoying. Marn and I haven't seen each other in 13 years. Pictures are one thing, but I want to see him in person. Linda sighed. I know, son, but your protection is above our list. It wasn't your father's fault that the company has crashed and his boss found out our happiness. I don't understand why he wants your father's family dead, but when he took you that day, your father just can't bear the fact of losing you again. Chris went up to his room and shut the door. He sat on the edge of the bed, just upset. He longed all this time to see his brother. He knew it wouldn't end well. He looked at himself in the mirror and saw a massive scar on his neck. It wasn't there before. He touched it. It started to bleed. Chris opened his eyes. He wasn't in his forest home. He was in a dorm room. He sat up and looked over the room. He knew he was in a room, but those dreams just won't stop coming. Marn was still asleep in his dorm bed. Chris shifted in his own bed, but he lay back, wiping the sweat off his brow. It was honestly way so scary how everything that has happened. He sat up and walked to the bathroom. He looked at that scar on his neck, remembering the pain he had for months. A bullet lodged in his voice box. He shivered and breathed deeply. He looked into his brown eyes, frightened. Chris slipped on a clean shirt and went out to the hallway. He needed the fresh air. He needed a walk. It was still very dark, not even 6 a.m., but not even the slightest sun rays have even dawned yet. The moon still shone brightly over the city. Chris sat on the curb and hugged himself, breathing deeply. The fear of being woken in a dark place just won't leave him alone. Hey! Chris got spooked over the sharp voice. He saw the security guard flash the flashlight in his face. I'm with my brother Martin. Please, I just came outside to get some fresh air. The guard put his light down. I am careful out here, Chris. I just never know what will happen. One guard can't watch all these acres. I could page Mr. Johnson for you to come to the recreation room. Chris shook his head. I'll be fine. I have handled myself before. The guard was silent before. He said, not until recently. Yes, Chris was still recovering from his loss from his home, the kidnapping, fighting for his life, going home only for it to burn to the ground with him in it. He couldn't bear to hear the screams from over the roaring fires. Chris nodded and walked over to the front doors. Everything felt cold to the touch. He entered a lobby and looked over it. He remembered the first day he walked in. He was heartbroken. The memories were all of a pain, the same pain. Chris went back to his room. His brother was still fast asleep in his bed, not even caring that his brother had even left the room. Chris sat up on his own bed and lay down. He stared at the ceiling. Before he knew it, he fell back to sleep. Flames. Hot flames. Chris shivered as those fires rose around him. He couldn't move. All he could do was lay there, watching the flames inch closer and closer to him. "Chris, wake up!" Chris woke up and sat so quickly. Martin stood back in shock. "You didn't have to shoot up like that, Chris." Chris brought his legs up to his chest and hugged himself tightly. "I'm just kinda glad you did wake me up." Martin sat on the edge of the bed. "You still have those nightmares?" Chris nodded and sighed. They just seemed to be getting worse. Martin just sat there, his blue eyes staring into Chris's cold soul. Chris rocked back and forth, feeling his veins burn from the flames of his past. But it just seems like a dream. Why was Martin just staring at him? Chris stared at Martin. Martin's blue eyes distorted before Chris. Chris screamed as the distortion turned his brother into a strange creature, in and out, flashes. The room got dark. A distorted creature, rotten to the bones, leaned over Chris, drooling on him. Then it all just becomes normal. Normal? What is normal?